From the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Powered by New West Recovery, Canada's largest addiction recovery community. Last Door and Westminster House. Tune in live every Thursday noon to 1. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And welcome to the show, everyone. Hello, my name is Giuseppe Ganci, and here we are with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Good afternoon, Darren.
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. And if you're in a different time zone, good afternoon to you too. 7 years of shows. We're pretty excited about that. And we're going to start off with a hot topic right now. There's an article that came out in the Vancouver Sun today, preaching what we've been saying on Talk Recovery Radio for a really long time. Hey, Darren? Woo. Yes. So Dr. Julian Summers today is talking about the evidence that's going on out there and what we're doing in regards to the addiction crisis here in Canada, and how we're not really following the evidence that's out there. We're kind of cherry picking on the evidence. And the main point in the article that came out today was the conversation about social integration and how we can't just treat addiction with drugs. And it's quite an interesting talk because right now, you know, we're all talking about safe supply in Canada. And this is all about how that really isn't going to overcome Canada's addiction crisis. And the article is called Addiction, Homelessness, and Evidence to Build Back Better. And it's not saying safe supply is not the answer. It's not saying safe supply doesn't work. It's not saying it's against safe supply. So to all you haters out there that, that for somehow turn into warriors, this isn't saying safe supply isn't an option. It's saying that it's not going to solve the problem. And it's saying that if we're doing interventions without social integration, it's just not going to work. And that's what the science shows. And SFU, it's kind of a big deal. Like SFU is a really big research institute, and they research thousands of people in the downtown east side. And the evidence shows people with severe addictions and people with severe mental health issues that are only giving housing first have worse outcomes when it comes to health outcomes. And I don't know why why nobody actually takes that into account.
It's pretty refreshing to read. The quote by the two doctors or the pioneers of methadone therapy. Let me just read it. The most that any chemical agent can do for an addict is to relieve his compulsive drive for illicit narcotic. To give him hope and self-respect requires human warmth. To become a productive citizen, he needs the effective support of persons who can help him find a job and protect him from discrimination. What else can you say? Like you said before, the narrative of harm reduction is the only thing a place like the downtown east side requires is ridiculous. It is needed.
It's stigmatizing.
It is.
It's like the people that are trying to break down stigma kind of create the stigma in the first place. Oh, you'll never get a job. Oh, you'll never get off the streets. Oh, you'll never stop being a sex worker. Oh, you'll never, just take the safe alternative, if you even call it safe. It's stigmatizing. That's a great comment there. And then the other part is Portugal's national strategy. So everybody talks about Portugal. Vancouver's following Portugal's model, which they're not. They're following the decrim model, but they're not actually following the Portugal model. So the mayor is actually being, I wouldn't say lying, but he's definitely, not saying, when he says we're going to follow the evidence, he's actually not, because Portugal did way more than decrim. All of their interventions are based on social integration. It's called the Commission of Drug Dissuasion. It's not okay to just, do drugs on the streets in Portugal, even in a country that's decriminalized drugs. And everybody has this idea that, you can just smoke crack anywhere and everyone's okay with it because it's stigma free. It's the exact opposite. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be asked to stop, you could get a ticket, and you'll be sent to treatment or considered or suggested to go to treatment. So we really need to take a look at this article. Please read it. We're going down the wrong path in Canada. I'll be as bold to say that. If we really want to follow the Swiss model and the Portugal model, let's do the respect for those two countries and actually do their entire model, not just a little piece. Switzerland has a high threshold safe supply. They're not, this show is powered by New West Recovery. We deal with newcomers walking into treatment, some of which are on safe supply. And you should see how much they're on. It's unbelievable. It's like they're giving out Tic Tacs. That's not what they do in Switzerland. It's not what they do. So how do we save lives? But how do we actually follow the evidence? And the evidence, not of advocates yelling at City Hall because of what they read on Twitter, but actual evidence that's done by places like SFU. So take a look at the article. It's shared on our Facebook page. So we really appreciate it. We're now time to get into our interviews. Darren, who are we talking recovery with today?
We get to talk recovery with author James Brown, critically acclaimed. He has 3 books in the work right now. We are talking about the book Apology to the Young Addict, a memoir. But also check out the Los Angeles Diaries and also This River. Welcome to the show. Hello, Mr. Brown.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay. I mean, this book. It's one of 3 that you've written on the topic of addiction recovery. How is it written as a memoir? Is this a story of your life? I read here that there's sort of essays throughout the book as well. Can you explain what's the reader getting into?
The readers get into a new brand of memoir, and the new brand of memoir, one that I've worked with, is that for the most part I've spent a lot of time writing novels and short stories. And so what I wanted to bring to the table is scene, setting, character, dialogue, and put that all into memoir. So try and recreate the experience as it occurred to the best of my ability, without just doing straight, this happened and this happened in a straight chronology. So it's more real and more entertaining and more true to the heart if you can capture the spirit of the event, people, rather than to just do a summary or a narration.
Right. Did this require interviews with people, or just sort of your own perspective and from an outside and relating your experience to the situations?
Pretty much what you just said. My own perspective and trying to bring to the table, and memory, of course. Memory is fallible, so there are bits and pieces that I have to quote unquote make up, but that they're in the spirit of the things that were said. So right. My memory is not perfect, but the events and everything I tell you, broad picture, it's true.
Now, so this, the type of author that you are obviously, in the realm of creative writing as well, not just, a biography written down here, but you have a personal story of addiction yourself. Can you tell us how did you, were you a writer first? Have you always been writing, and how did that come to fruition?
Well, they kind of meshed, to tell you the truth, man. I've been using and abusing since I was a pup, and we're talking 9 years old. And then I started writing, I think, seriously when I was in my 20s. Meantime, I'm still using and abusing. And for me, I wasn't an instant addict. I was that term called functioning alcoholic addict.
Yeah,
Heard
it.
Yeah,
it.
you heard you used it. Yeah, you've used it too. I think I functioned, but I was able to get by, get my work done, and still get my writing done. And so both of them worked in tandem until I got to about, well, shoot, man, I think it was about 35, maybe. I'm trying to think back here. I'm 60, 53. And yeah, it was just, there was a period where the drugs and alcohol caught up to me, and I did not write for 9 years, simply because I could not write. I was not in a condition to write. So it wasn't until I got some sober time under my belt that I could pick up where I left off in those 9 years. And that's when I began to write the memoirs. I said, to heck with fiction. I want to tell the truth as I understand it, to the best of my abilities, and let that be my story.
Right on. One of the reviews I wrote on your new book, Apology to the Young Addict, it's a book of perspective, empathy, and wisdom for addicts and anyone who's ever loved them. This book will help an enormous number of people. I mean, that's what we hope. You know, like a lot of our viewers and listeners are listening to our show, looking for just something to give them a little bit of more information, a little relief, a little relatability. Is that what you hoped would come about this, or are you just writing, you know, for yourself in a sense, and this was just what came out? Like, and if you can explain like the title for us a little bit too. Is it self-reflective in the apology to you as a young addict, or how does that work?
Okay, well, first, thank you for the nice review. I appreciate it, and those are some very generous words you gave me. In terms of, did I write this book with the intention of helping other addicts and alcoholics? It's a kind of yes/no answer. The yes is that I knew that I was writing stories about addiction, about alcoholism, my own and of others. And I wanted to make record of the people that I've sponsored. I wanted to make record of some of my own, my own thinking, and how, now that I've got some sober time under my belt, how I've been able to keep it. So I just wanted to tell the truth, my own truth. And then I kept my fingers crossed that my truth would be reflective of the truths of other people. And I've been to a lot of AA meetings, and I really think that when we're truthful about our experience, there's somebody out there that's going to say, hey, I can identify with that. So I hope that the book, The Apology to Young Addict, does that. And then your third part of the question was Apology to Young Addict. This is something that bugs me, and it's that, and it's something that I didn't really think about until I got older. And that's that my using and abusing, I was doing a lot of that with other people. And some of these people are young. Yeah. And now that I look back, they're looking at an adult figure, a professor of English, sitting around, getting high with them. In a way, doing that makes me, I'm contributing to their addiction. I'm acting as one shitty role model. And as I've gotten older, I realize now that the parents of addicts, the parents of children, the addicts who are parents and have children, those children are not dumb. They're seeing what's happening. And some children will step away from it, as you know, and others are going to be, hey, mommy and daddy said it's okay. Or they're doing it.
You know, we were talking about this at the beginning of the show. You know, how do you help solve the addiction crisis North America seems to be saving? And we're trying to do it with, these interventions that deal with the substance, safe supply, all that other kind of stuff. But the reality is I'm thinking for you too, and for me, the idea of social integration. Like, I had no idea when I showed up to rehab many, many, many years ago that I had to fix myself in the view I have with the world around me, people, places, and things. And it's one of those things, like, you get to a point where you realize wow, this is what I did in life. Like step 9, making amends, taking my inventory. Like if you would have told me that when I was still using, like what are you talking about? Like,
Right.
like it's the government's fault I use. It's Jesus's fault I use. Like it's like me. It's not my fault I use. And that's kind of the conversation that we really love having on this show. It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And because I can't control people, places, and things, it's like, yeah, I'm the one that showed up for life every day to use. And the idea of I remember having that moment where it's just like, I don't say guilt or shame, but just like a realization to the truth. It's like, wow, like the gig is up. Like I was the one that screwed myself over too. So in your book and the apology, is that the place where if you're in the 12-step fellowship, and for those that aren't in 12-step fellowship, is that the place where it's just like taking ownership of your life and realizing like from today on, like, like if like if you relapse, like you're a big part of the reason why you relapse. Is that kind of what you're trying to get out as well with your book and so forth?
Yes, and you phrase it wonderfully. And that the bottom line, as you know, apparently you've been there. In the end, it's up to you and I to make that decision to get clean and sober and stay clean and sober. Well, people could try and help us, and that's good, and they should continue to. But it falls on our shoulders ultimately that we have to change our way of thinking. We have to think about other people. We have to think about what we've done, what our behavior is, our destructive behavior. And then we have to say to ourselves, okay, this is, you heard it in AA, it's an inside job. And we got to work on that inside because, just to be on a surface level about this, the physical withdrawal addiction, that's, you can do it, I can do it, I can do it again, you can do it again. But it's the big bitch is the obsession and not letting our minds go there and not returning to our old ways. That's up here in the head. That's psychological.
Mhm.
That's where we get defeated. And that's also where we can claim victory.
I don't know if you were part of the beginning of the show there when Darren and I was talking about Dr. Julian Summers' article that came out in our local paper today, but it's on this topic. you know Everyone talks about addiction and it's a disease and so forth, and I'm somewhere in the middle of all that. But I remember talking to Dr. Julian Summers. He's actually a friend of mine, and I remember he said something to me, and I wanted to know what your thoughts were. He said, you know what, out of all the diseases on the planet, all of them, there's only one disease where a human decision can cure it, and that's addiction. And
Hmm.
I thought that's so powerful. It's like everything else needs a medical intervention, but addiction is the only disease on the planet that can stop, the harms can stop if you decide. And what are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a great. I think that's a great observation you made. And the addiction community right now is getting divided, and it's getting divided in ways that I haven't thought through entirely. And that there's a medical solution. I was watching an HBO program the other night talking about how it's a disease of the mind and how it can be treated with other drugs and how we can reduce cravings, how we can do this, do that. And we shouldn't stigmatize addiction as something that's within the control of the addict to change. And, I have a different feeling about that. I think it is within our power, as you said before, to make the change. It's great if we can have some kind of other potions and powders that might help us in that area. But I put more faith in the old school of of it being an inside job, and I put faith in the idea sometimes that, like, if there's an intervention, that at least the person, even if they go in with resistance, they're getting exposure they never would have had. So we can't help them that way. But in the end, I don't want to coddle someone to death. And I think we're getting a little bit like that when we start to use terms like, I hope I'm not offending you or offending people who might be listening. When we get into terms like substance use disorder. to try and destigmatize the darkness and the despair of addiction, calling someone a junkie or a drunk. I prefer junkie and drunk over substance abuse disorder.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't offend you guys.
No, we've been saying that on the show. Like, who did they ask? What labels to call? I mean, it's so like, don't tell me what to call myself, please. Thank you. I'm pretty happy with. I'm not going to label you anything, but I can label myself what I want. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good. We're in agreement.
Yeah, we've had many discussions of like, if you're in a room full of suits, let's make an appropriate sounding nomenclature to what we are. And for us, I was an alcoholic, I was a drunk, I was a junkie, I was an addict, I was a dope fiend. It all just comes down to the same basis that individual suffered from many psychological, emotional weaknesses and found solution in the using and in the substances. And that person needed to become stronger. And that's, I think, along the line what you're saying, and what I've always thought too is, I mean, any intervention is meaningful in a specific environment. But like you said, just throwing these interventions for anybody to take without, getting to know anybody, history or background or where they want to go, it just becomes the next excuse or the next, like you say, coddling situation where nobody's really sort of, having to push themselves. And if I've known anything about what it takes to change, somebody needs to develop some resiliency, right? And so, when I think about and what I've read on a little bit of your background, like the resiliency that was required to change, and you even spoke about it minutes ago when you talked about still having remorse for not paying attention as you do now for the influence that you had, with younger people. How much of that remorse is part of that, what we shouldn't medicate and that we should almost experience on a daily basis? And I guess from your own experience, do you still feel remorse on a daily basis, or when thinking about these times, that now motivates you, or now that sort of keeps you level?
Yes. There are things in my past for which I feel remorse, for which I feel guilt, for which I feel shame. And sometimes when I think about them, I want to say the word shudder, but it sounds a little dramatic. But I do kind of go back to, oh Jesus, what was I thinking? What was I doing? And then I think to myself, now that I have clarity to look back on that, because when I was using and abusing, I wasn't thinking about other people. I wasn't thinking about things like remorse, guilt, this or that. I was too busy and self-absorbed. But now that I'm older, or now that I'm sober, remorse actually is a tool. And it's a tool that reminds me of the person I once was, and it's the person I don't want to be anymore. So I don't want to let go entirely of those things that when I think about them, I go, oh shit, did I do that? Oh shit, did I say that? I don't want to be that person anymore. And so, yes, you're right. It is a tool. Our feelings, our thoughts, our past, they're tools, man.
Yeah. Well, reading some of the the definitions or the explanations or whatever, you're painting a picture of your book, the darkness it reads, and the grittiness and whatnot. Like, what pulls me into a book is one that tells the truth so much that I feel connected to that experience as well, that I can relate to the feelings of feeling horrible. And we hear so much in programs or people trying to convince themselves that they're getting better, no regrets. I got no more regrets. Like, and even in some of the AA, NA literature, which I'm involved in,
Right.
it's guilt-free this, and to sort of dissolve all guilt. And I've always wondered, from other people with experience of being, in recovery long term, and always looking back, does that ever go away, and should it? Right. So I appreciate your candor on that. I think that should be in the writing that we look to. So, we're coming near an end of our interview here. I wonder, with someone who gets to continuously like write about others and look at themselves, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in hindsight about recovery or change, or just the human experience? What can you tell us about what you've learned in hindsight?
Well, I don't think I could tell you anything, because I think you and I and your counterpart here have been to the same places, and have returned from hell, which I like to say, returned from hell with the wisdom of the damned. And what the bottom line is, and that sometimes sometimes some of us sink so far that it appears there's no coming back. And I'm from the school, I believe that there, but the thing we always go to, what I'm going to say, it's about hope. It's about not losing hope, because if you lose the hope, then any strength that you might have to move in the direction that might turn your life around, it's gone. You're basically saying, I give up. And so I guess the basic lesson is, do not give up. It can be a long struggle. Some of us get it quick and get sober quick the first time they try. Others get relapse again and again. But that doesn't mean that they too can't get sober, because I'm one of those people. I tried to get sober, I think around when I was 40. I told you I'm 63 now, and I have 14 years of sobriety. So figure it out. There's some years
You got a
missing
story.
Yeah, there's some bumps in the road there. But if I fail with each bump of the road, well, I wouldn't have got those 14 years.
Yeah, everybody, we really want that message out there to our listeners and viewers. If you're trying out a recovery pathway, whether it be SMART recovery, life ring, 12-step, whatever it is, medication, whatever you're doing, like, it's always a step forward. It's never, well, this doesn't work. I remember I was going to sue a 12-step program when I relapsed. It didn't work. I'm telling you, I had a press release and everything. Like, these people, it didn't work. And, it's a process. I got out of psychosis and I never sued. But it was a real moment in time for me where I actually really believed they've done me wrong. And not to say that people aren't done wrong in life, obviously, but really take a look at that statement and what it really means and so forth, and see what your part is. We're running out of time, Darren, but I really wanted to ask this question, so if I may. And in the bio that we have for you about your book, there's a line in there that talks about loss of a beloved sponsor. Did you lose a sponsor?
Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on that, because it's a big part of the recovery process that really doesn't get spoken out loud in a social environment, to the mass media. So, what did your sponsor mean to you, and what was the loss like, and how did you move on from that?
Well, the loss was incredible. This is a man that was my sponsor. He had wisdom. We became friends. He didn't judge me. He advised me. He didn't condemn me. And like I said before, I slipped a few times during the course of our sponsorship, and he would just kind of shake his head and say, "Well, you're here now, aren't you? We're talking. Well, today's your first day again. You didn't lose all those days. You didn't lose them. You got that sober time. So don't think like you lost that sober time. You had it. I said, but you got to get sober again now. And he was always behind me. He was supportive, not judgmental, didn't try to make me feel guilty. Just he helped me. And he himself was, he's a special man, special man. His loss was great to me. I miss him and I love him. And I attribute my belief in a God, and I attribute my sponsor, and then I attribute, a few other people with my sobriety, and he most certainly was huge to me.
I think
Thanks.
if one of the outcomes of being in a path of recovery is major grief in the loss of these relationships, I think it's well worth it. For that means the relationship was so special and worthwhile, that the loss is so great. And I think that's something to appreciate in the grieving process at some point, so it's pretty neat that we get to be a part of that type of relationship in our lives, that much meaning. Well, I just want to say, stay tuned. There's something that's in the works, a fourth book that you're collaborating on right now, Writing Your Way to Recovery, How Stories Can Save Our Lives, some sort of a guide to journaling and self-reflection, I'm assuming. So if you want to keep in touch with that, jamesbrownauthor.com is where you can find a link to all the books. James Brown, thank you very much for being on Talk Recovery with us. We appreciate your conversation.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to this.
Take care, James. Take care. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for listening and watching, to all our viewers out there. That was James Brown. You can go on our Facebook page to follow the links and get more information from James. And I'm using the wrong mouse. Take care, James.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. And now you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio on Facebook Live, as well as on 100.5 Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO. And we're not in studio yet. We're still on Zoom Live. Studio shut down due to COVID. Hopefully we'll be back on the show. And before we get into our next guest, just want to remind everybody you can replay all of our shows at talkrecoveryradio.com, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Just click on a link on your favorite stream source. Now we've got out of our waiting room, we've got Curtis Eichelberger. Yes, I said that correct. Perfect. Excellent. Welcome to the show from Skate Straight. And we appreciate you being on the show here. So you're in Dallas, Texas.
I am in Dallas, Texas. Yes.
Excellent. Well, it's been raining in Vancouver for a month. So I'm not too sure what's going on in Dallas, Texas, but sometimes I wish I was somewhere down south down there. So you have a story of building unity amongst the skate community. So there's a personal story of addiction and recovery, so forth. So we always like to have our viewers kind of get a foundation of who we're talking to. So you're in Dallas and you started a recovery journey when and because?
My journey to recovery, the actual journey to recovery started a little over a year ago. I had 33 years of addiction and alcoholism, of straight using since the time I was 14. I never had been in recovery, didn't know anything about it. And when I was at a head where I was about to lose everything, including my health, my wife said, you need to go to rehab or you're not coming home. So I did what you're supposed to do in recovery. I went to rehab and it was faith-based rehab. And I wasn't a faith-based person. I didn't grow up religious. And so it was real difficult for me to fit into that program. I mean, I loved everybody there and it was definitely a positive, but I just, when I started going to meetings and stuff, I didn't really fit in, and I knew that other people were struggling with that kind of stuff too. So I just thought to myself, there needs to be something different. There needs to be something else out there for people like me. And I grew up skateboarding and in the punk rock scene. So I was like, there has to be something skateboarding oriented or punk rock oriented, because there's obviously people in recovery that are in my scene. I know it, I mean, I know there's sober skateboarders, sober pro skateboarders, and people in music and stuff. So I was friends with a pro skater who had a private skate park, and we kind of put our heads together after losing a friend to alcoholism right after I got out of rehab, and Skate Straight was born from there.
That's always a powerful story, to find your own recovery pathway and go with it. And this show supports all the pathways and encourages people to find what works for them. I have a question for you. So you said that you were in active addiction for 30 years and you didn't know anything about recovery. It's a conversation we like to bring up because it's a big deal. So when you say you had 30 years of addiction, like, were you a heavy user, a functioning addict, or occasional use? Like did your wife know you were using that whole time? And there's a reason why I'm asking that.
I mean, because of growing up in the skateboard and punk rock culture, it is a heavy party scene, which was always a party. But when you start to hit the age of 40, the party kind of is over for most people. It just wasn't me. So I continued down that path, and I was, using, drinking, living poorly, just like bad health. Like, it was all bad. And I had never, ever even tried to get sober. And I was functioning because I'm an artist. So I was living, like an artist who actually lives off his art. So I didn't have a boss. I didn't really have like a 9-to-5 job. My hours were all over the place, perfect for somebody in addiction. So the only difference was I was pretty motivated to keep my artwork and stuff going. So I was functioning to that sense. I mean, I always say, but a lot of people say they talk about a bottom, but I always say, I don't know if I would have hit a bottom, because I still had money in the bank, house, a car, a truck, kids in college. But the reality was my health was going to give out way before my rock bottom would have ever hit me.
Yeah, we have a pretty strong belief. There's no such thing as a bottom. It's a metaphor maybe out there, but we work in a facility, part of this show, and there's people that are homeless in group, and there's millionaires in group, and everything in between. So what is the bottom? And the bottom is when you kind of want to stop. And I always find it interesting that somebody can be in addiction for 30 years, and there isn't that conversation about recovery promoted, or there's no conversations out there like educating people. Well, I didn't know what recovery was until I showed up to rehab, and I had a 20-30 year. It's just bizarre if you don't see it on TV, or you don't have an uncle in an AA that kind of guides you. Leaving it to the medical world is just, my doctors never told me, hey, you should try this recovery thing out. It just never happened, and I hope that changes one day. So what goes on with Skate Dallas? So is it an outreach group? What is it? And hopefully it inspires somebody up here in Canada to do the same thing. What is it?
I wish it would take off more. What we do is more of a support group. It's based in Smart Recovery, which is self-managed and recovery training. It's more of a cognitive-based recovery program. And it's open to everybody. So some people from AA come to it. I always say it's an addition to whatever program you're in, but basically we're a support group that helps support each other. We meet, we have meetings. There's a yoga class that goes on before the meeting. We all hang out and skate together afterwards. It's a private skate park and it's sober. The whole park, there's nothing allowed in. So there's no alcohol or drugs or someone else that's just skateboarding over the side and smoking weed or something like that, which happens at every skate park. It's constant, it's just something that's very ingrained into that business of skateboarding. But what we do is we meet, we do an hour-long meeting, and then we basically keep each other, motivated. I mean, my recovery, I based out helping some of the people that come through my group, helping B always helps A, so like being of service to others. We really preach service a lot. And to me, it's more than just cleaning coffee mugs and and putting out the chairs. It's actually going out and helping other people. I mean, I'm at a rehab right now. I work at a rehab facility here in Dallas. And so it's about actually doing the work, you know. And when I say, you know, part of the stuff in AA that I really was drawn to was, one, the fellowship of, you know, being around other people of like mind. And then the other part of it was helping others, you know, and that's kind of what we really try to do. And we do a lot of food rescue stuff. I mean, we work together a lot to do a lot of really good stuff, try to stay positive and keep everybody in a very positive space, you know, while we're there.
That's so cool. I mean, even just hearing your story, I can relate to winding up in programs that, you know, it's just like, this isn't for me. These are different types of people, and sort of shutting off right there. I mean, you didn't say specifically, but it sounds like you completed that program, even though you didn't necessarily feel like you were going to go all in to the religious aspect of it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was heavily big book based.
Yeah.
The program was, and I don't knock them for that. That's just the way and I didn't know anything about it, and I'm glad I learned it, because it was like college. I mean, I had to do 2 big book classes a day, 3 meetings a day, and then we did off-campus meetings, and that it was in a small West Texas town that was like, you know, basically a lot of country people there, and I didn't relate to them, and I was just the big weirdo there. So that was what was kind of like, there has to be a different way. And I learned, you know, I took what I could from them, but I also learned what I liked about AA, and one of the things I do. Some of the step work, I think, is about being a better human. And that's what I really, you know, was positive about that. And so I accept all paths of recovery. If anything works for you, if it's refuge recovery, if it's SWAT recovery, if you go to church and or if you just decide you don't want to drink anymore and you just don't, whatever it is for you, I applaud anybody that can do it. And I always encourage everybody to try everything. That's what I did. I went out, leaving that 30-day program. I went in thinking 30 days is way too much. I'm going to be, and then leaving, this is way not enough. Like, I need to be here like a year, you know? Yeah. And when I got out, I just started educating myself. I started taking online courses. I read, the first year of sobriety, I read 30 books. I mean, I just really dove into it and learned everything I could about it. And I just kind of passed that information on to my group.
So, I mean, it's impressive to me, because I mean, I was, you know, in and out of so many rehabs in my experience, and anytime there was something different about the place I was in, it immediately became my excuse or my reason to leave and check out. And I mean, it's not completely rare, but it's a smaller percentage of people that come into the first time, you know, identify the differences, and continue to be motivated and willing, you know, to keep searching and to keep learning and to take the things that do work. I mean, that mindset right there, as you're describing it, I'm so impressed with it. I have so much appreciation for it, because it sort of speaks to that individual that, you know, that wants to come up with the first excuse to stop doing what's right in front of them, and you know, countless relapse after relapse after relapse, do they then get it, you know? And so I appreciate that part of your story, and the similarity of what you're doing with Skate Straight is, you know, in every religious meeting that I've been involved with, like that service to others, that, you know, building a community where people that felt a little bit different or need to feel like they belong can feel comfortable. And what better than, you know, a specific culture like skateboarding, where I'm sure it's difficult, like you say, to find you know, relationships and people to talk to talk about your struggles with addiction.
Yeah,
like
a lot of the people that come to my group, they came in with absolutely adamant against AA. And after listening to me and a couple of the guys that do both, they got a different sense of it. And then I think once they heard there's a different way to take this, and you don't have to, I mean, the only ticket to ride in AA is the desire not to drink. right? So if you go in with that mindset and don't have to listen to the people, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way, it's not true. You have to do it your way and what works for you. And I think that as to somebody who's already depressed and already has anxiety, going into a room and being told whatever they do is wrong, and if you're not doing it the specific way, then you're gonna, I mean, honestly, it really kind of pushed me into doing Skate Straight, was because they told me I couldn't. I mean, they told me I couldn't do sobriety my way. And I was like, being the rebellious skateboarder I am, I said, well, that's probably exactly how I'm going to do it. And that's what I've been doing. But I mean, I don't want to buck the system and say anything that they're doing is wrong. That's fine. When someone has that and they have a higher power and they believe in that stuff and they follow stuff that works for them, that is amazing. That's great.
We've been doing this show for 7 years. I also have a presence on stakeholder groups. That's Recovery Day in my neighborhood that we did obviously 2 years ago, not last year. And, you know, all these pathways of recovery together. But that took like a decade to organize to get to that level. When we started, it was hard to get 10 service providers to agree to be in one event together, because this was 12 step, that was not 12 step. That's kind of disappeared in our neighborhood, but not fully. But the difference with you is you're not knocking anything. It's like, this is what I'm doing. The problem is when somebody's like, I'm going to start this new program because that program doesn't work. We've had guests on our shows where we kind of like want to be nice, but after the show, we're like, man, what a, you know, because they're like, that doesn't work and that kills people and AA is full of predators. And you're like, what? Like, I go to AA, like I'm not a, so it's that conversation of recovery. It's like, when I was new, I hated church. I'm a gay male. My family's very Roman Catholic. Like, I hated church. You told me you were a Christian. I was just like, why? You know, I really hated it. And then I got into recovery and you know, we're not a religious organization, but like some people are Christian and some people are Buddhist and some people are whatever other faith base. I started to learn to like the recovery process is respect. And now it's like, if you're Christian, I don't turn into this like, you know, warrior of the pride movement. I'm like, okay, that took years though of work. But now it's just like whatever your pathway is. And even Darren can attest to this. When we started this show, we had beliefs and those have changed. I mean, we had somebody on the show once, you know, on ayahuasca treatment, and I had opinions about it. The person was actually on ayahuasca but you know what? He had so much passion to help the founder of that program. And you have this realization, like, we're all just trying to help people. And so I applaud you because you're not against anything. You're like, hey, I'm going to do this with smart recovery. And if you're in AA, that's cool, but this is what we do. And I really wish governments and politicians and people would understand, stop pitting us all against each other. Like, if you want to have a program, like, give people the choice. In Portugal, I'm doing a movie on this. In Portugal, when you show up to an assessment, there isn't this big private industry that says you have to do this or you'll die. It's like, here's your choices. You can go to therapeutic communities, you can go to methadone, you can go to AA programs, you can go to smart programs. Like, what do you want to do? It's up to you. And if you want to go to all of them, eventually go to all of them. There's no pitting against each other. But here, we're all fighting for space. We're all fighting for dollars. And I'm sure the same thing is going on in Dallas. So you're an artist. You've got merchandise all over your store, really cool stuff. I don't think you were designing Sober is Dope 10 years ago.
No. This is
actually, how has recovery changed your artistic expression?
Well, it is what I do. So I mean, no matter what I am, sober or not sober, I am an artist. So being creative is just an outlet for me. And I got a lot of flack for it at first, but for me, I had to design something. I really felt like the recovery industry, in my own personal opinion, I'm sure someone will send me an email about this, there wasn't a lot of cool gear like to wear that says you're sober. And I'm the type of person that kind of wears what I do and who I am around as a t-shirt and a hoodie, because that's what I wear every single day. And so I did some designs. I mean, it was 1 year ago that I came up with the logo for Skate Straight, and I posted it. I go, I'm working on a new project. That was just in my Facebook memories 2 days ago. And I was like, wow, so much has changed. I mean, the merch is a passion project of mine because it gives me a creative outlet. But at the same time, and I'm also good with marketing and good with online marketing stuff. And but I use the sales of that merch to maintain our in-person meetings. And so it's not a big cash cow. I always specify we're not a clothing company, we're not a skateboard company, we're a recovery group that just so happens to have t-shirts. So I mean, that's literally what it is. I mean, but I've designed all kinds of stuff. I have hip sacks, I have or fanny packs, whatever you want to call them. I have all kinds of backpacks, I've designed shoes. And I've just done a bunch of cool stuff, and I've really kind of pushed it. But I make sure all the sales go to our in-person recovery group. But I also help the other people that are in my group, the core members, become facilitators. So I pay for their facilitation costs, when they do their classes, to become a smart recovery facilitator. And anyways, I just use that as an outlet for me. You know, I've been working in the concert industry as an artist, and I'm working in the skateboard community as an artist. I'm doing graphics for skaters and t-shirts and that kind of stuff. So it was just a natural way to work with what I know best, which is graphic design and art, and be able to still do it in a recovery way and to help other people too.
Right on. I mean, I was never much of a skater when I was growing up, but I mean, it was such about, you know, the clothes and the designs and whatnot. And, you know, it almost like, well, for sure, when I was a kid, like if you're getting into skateboarding, you're getting in, you know, everything involved, right? Like there was not even a notion of sober skaters or you know, clean, cool dudes, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be pretty inspiring, like, you know, getting some of the young kids involved and you know, before it gets so bad, or just the beginning of an influence where there's also, you know, you can still do the same thing, you know, and it doesn't have to come with all the debauchery involved with it.
Well, and another reason why I want people to wear it and with pride is I feel that it breaks the stigma. There's no reason why anybody should feel bad or be looked down upon for wanting to you know, to take time and do self-care and take better care of themselves as a, you know, as their body, their mind, their spirit, everything. You know, I've lost so many people that I've grown up with, and it's all because the party ended a long time ago and they kept going. And so what I want people to do is wear that, you know, and be able to wear it when people go, what is that? Go, oh, it's the sober skate thing that I'm involved in. And you know what's even more strange? I sell more merch out of state and overseas than I do actually here in Texas. A lot of the Texas stuff I give to the members whenever they're at meetings. I just hand them shirts or patches, or I make stickers. I make thousands and thousands of stickers. I pass them out on a daily basis. I give them to clients here at the rehab I work at all the time too. So, you know, it's just a way of marketing in the same sense that skateboarding did, but I'm pushing something positive. You know, I want there to be another way. You know, there's a bunch of old skaters who are in recovery, but I'd like for a bunch of young skaters to see they don't even have to get into that. They don't have to, you know, get into that. You could actually skateboard and not party. I mean, straight edge, another really big positive thing that I wish a lot of skateboarders would get into. And most people don't even know about it. It's a whole culture. I mean, that's not just what you wear, it's what you eat, bands you see, people you hang out with. When people go, oh, I don't know how I'd be sober and not have friends, I go Google straight edge community. And I'm like, those people have been doing it since the 80s. You know, they have tons of friends. It's a huge movement. You know, I mean, it's all positive.
The ripple effect is contagious. You know, we organize a sober pride event, and there's lots of sober pride events, but they're usually on a boat, or they're in a church basement, or they're, you know, somewhere off of the area of where usually a pride event takes place. But we've been like, really, we don't want to do that. Like, we do it right on the main street during Pride, so everybody sees the banner. And the very first one we did, I don't know, 7 years ago, no one wanted to go. Like, not even people that were sober. Like, I had to beg friends to show up. And now it's become one of the largest sober dances in any Pride event. And the whole goal is what you're talking about, is somebody who has no idea of what sober even is, seeing a bunch of people like-minded having fun with no drugs or alcohol. I mean, it never occurred to me when I was 16. I was just like, it just did it. And to do that visually, the visualization, and this has happened to me, this will happen to you. One day you're just sitting there, it's like, yeah, I saw your sober skaters, and I just decided like I could try that. And the rewards are amazing. So I applaud you for that. When I hear that, hey, I saw your event, and 2 years later, I decided to get clean. You're like, wow, the way worth, all the work involved. The website is Skate Straight. You can go there, support, make a donation, buy some merchandise. If you're a skater and you're struggling right now and you're just feeling not part of, Kurt, you got 30 seconds. Inspire them. What do you have to say to them?
For people that are wanting to get clean, this is what I tell people: if you're serious about change, you'll find a way. And if you're not, you're going to find an excuse. And that's when people are really ready to be sober and change their lives. That's, for me, I had a million excuses of why I didn't get sober in my 20s and didn't get sober in my 30s. And it took me to my 40s to figure it out. And I wish I would have done it. I'd had so much more money in the bank right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a testament for all of us. Thanks for joining us on Talk Recovery Radio. We really appreciate it. If you're watching us on Facebook Live right now, just go into the links to our page and you can find his website there, skatestraight.com. You'll find it on Google. And if you're listening to us on the radio, thanks for listening. And we'll be in the studio soon. Hopefully COVID will be over, and restream us on all of your favorite platforms. We're out there. Talk Recovery Radio is powered by New West Recovery, which is Canada's recovery community. And Darren, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks a lot, Kurt. All the best, man.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. See you next Thursday.
Bye.